Jacob, do you want to read 19?
Sure. When Jesus had finished saying these things, he left Galilee and went to the region of Judea beyond Jordan. Large crowds followed him, and he cured them there. Some Pharisees came to him to test him. They asked, "Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause?" He answered, "Have you not read that the one who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, 'For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh.' So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate." They said to him, "Why then does Moses command us to give a certificate of dismissal and to divorce her?" He said to them, "It was because you were so hard-hearted that Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for unchastity, and marries another, commits adultery." His disciples said to him, "If such is the case of a man with his wife, it is better not to marry." But he said to them, "Not everyone can accept this teaching, but only those to whom it is given. For there are eunuchs who have been so from birth, and there are eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by others. And there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake of their kingdom of heaven. Let anyone accept this who can." Then little children were being brought to him in order that he might lay his hands on them and pray. The disciples spoke sternly to those who brought them, but Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not stop them, for it is such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs." And he laid his hands on them and went on his way. Then someone came to him and said, "Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life?" And he said to them, "Why do you ask me what is good? There is only one who is good. If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments." He said to him, "Which ones?" And Jesus said, "You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, honor your father and mother, also you shall love your neighbor as yourself." The young man said to him, "I have kept all of these. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go, sell your possessions, and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." When the young man heard this word, he went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Truly I tell you, it will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astounded and said, "Then who can be saved?" But Jesus looked at them and said, "For mortals it is impossible, but for God all things are possible." Then Peter said in reply, "Look, we have left everything and followed you. What then will we have?" And Jesus said to them, "Truly I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man is seated at the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or fathers or mothers or children or fields, for my name's sake, will receive 100-fold and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last will be first."
Okay. What things jump out at us in this chapter?
Well, I see the one thing on this deal that they were talking about leaving your wife and that. And then, I don't know if this might have been written by more Mel deals or something where it says, "Except for unchastity." Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, is a sexual sin worse than other sins or something that I think, you know, why would that be the thing? Yeah, you almost have to look into, I would think, into the culture and everything else more than, I just can't see God saying that's the ultimate sin. And what would cause that woman to do that would be a greater sin than the sin itself, I think.
I'll let you first answer that, and then I'll get into
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Please.
There
you
is
can-
actually a reason for it, and that is because you always know who the mother is. You don't always know who the father is.
Okay,
Therefore, to control a woman's body and make sure she only has children by the man, so his inheritance and name and everything can go through the legitimate child, was of great importance.
sure.
Which is why men could have multiple wives, or a man could commit adultery, and it was less of a concern than for a woman, because then the whole family line was at stake.
Sure, so
Yeah.
it was a,
It was a
that
cultural,
last part would have probably been dropped in from
the culture.
culture,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the other half that I was going to get into, is that the whole bit about the man can leave the woman. The man can leave the woman,
Yeah,
but not the woman leaving the man. And this gets into like in the news this morning, they were talking about, and this isn't just really, just a problem with the Hmong community, but with all of these, the overall male-dominant societies where it is so difficult for women to get out of these relationships in which the man is overbearing, over controlling, even injurious to the woman, and ultimately we've had some recent
abuse.
tragedies where the woman was killed by the man, and then in some cases the man kills himself or hides it, tries to cover it up, and then gets convicted of it. But it's this section has been so harmful for women by saying that everything. This gets into a lot of those parts too that have been harping on Eve's role in being the initial sin, but it's just very frustrating, the one-sidedness of passages like this, and wondering how much of this was twisted or taken out of context from what Jesus was really saying, and then woe be to those who twisted it.
And then you have the person that goes, but all scripture is sacred.
yeah,
You know, now that to me, I had somebody throw that at me here recently, but all scripture is sacred.
It was
Pretty
still
weird.
men who put the pen to the paper and then voted on it and voted some things out.
But
The council
but it was done by the Spirit.
yeah.
You know, that's what they would say. You know, the Spirit is put together this.
And some would say the
sure.
Crusades were done by the Spirit.
Absolutely. No, I hear it. I'm just saying, it gives you, that's why we have minds.
Yes.
No, it's an important distinction, and for someone who wants to believe in kind of the narrow literal interpretation, that's fine. I'm not going to argue them out of it, because that's almost impossible to do. But to differentiate and say, people can believe in the importance of the Bible without believing that it's all, quote, of equal value, and that there's no humanness in it, right? That we have a very human hand. But just as there are books that have changed our lives that we've read, that we hope pastors speak inspiration on Sundays. We hope these things because we believe the Holy Spirit's working and alive now as back then. We can take great meaning from teachings today, but somehow this is for a lot of people, a completely different level, right? And to me, that just doesn't work. And I'm not sure it's even very helpful. So we have the freedom to look at this and say, what is the spirit that's in here? What is it that Jesus was really trying to say that was helpful? Yeah.
I guess,
Yep.
I think we've talked about it too. If it's inclusive, you know, it's good. If it's healing, if it's that, if it's separating and stuff like that. It's not,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's things like this that have driven some people away, especially if they encounter individuals who decry that the Bible must be taken literally, for word, and therefore, if they won't conform or won't accept passages like this, then they're doomed to damnation and cast out or ostracized from that community. And they don't get exposed to the options that do come with the different denominations that we have.
Yeah, a lot of damage has been done by telling people that because they had a divorce, they've gone against God's will or this, that, or anything. It's a complete lack of empathy and understanding. That's
the first pastor I worked with, I was an associate pastor with back in Zion Lutheran Church. His daughter had gone through a divorce, and it all but devastated him. I mean, he still accepted her, but still, it was lousy for him. And it's just that frame of reference that he held on to.
I think one of the greatest you'll see it was if you see a guy who's newly divorced and he's coming to a funeral or walking into the church, he'll never go beyond the last pew.
Oh.
Because he's not feeling, he doesn't feel worthy enough to move in further. I noticed when I was first divorced, that's as far as I could get in. And I remember seeing a buddy of mine come to the funeral or something, and that was as far as he could come in. And I thought, wow, that's really kind of interesting, because of all that. Yeah.
Well, I think the parable of the rich young man is very interesting. I've been doing a lot of journaling and processing about money, and unfortunately, this is sort of my current understanding, is that money is neutral, like so many other things, and actually can come from a real positive sense of, exchange, which is a relationship. And yet it has been hijacked to promote all sorts of greed and abuse and things. Therefore, because it is a tangible symbol of the way people are greedy and hoard and abuse and steal, people say money itself is evil. And so a lot of times in the church, the reaction was, in order to avoid that, or just poverty and celibacy, these are the things. Let's leave the earthly things behind. And that might have had some meaning and purpose in the time. But in reality, what we want is to restore the original blessing that all of these things had, which is, again, the web of relationship. So money is a abstract representation of a giving and a receiving that should be fair and equitable and enough for everybody. Because we know there's enough. There's enough. There's an abundant supply of resources on our planet. It's the distribution problem. So in this case, I see this rich young man, and a lot of people were wealthy because of unfair policies and unfair things going on. So again, it's that ladder thing. He's on the top, and yet he's praising himself and patting himself on the back for being on the top. And Jesus is purposely kicking the rung out of the ladder so that it falls down for the purpose of getting him his attention, to have him realize that his wealth is actually an inhibitant to him understanding the web of God. It is not helpful. He hasn't made it because he's on top of the ladder. He needs to completely get rid of the ladder altogether. So that's how I see this now, is Jesus is not saying money is evil, everybody should give away everything all the time. because I just don't think that's helpful. Rather to restore what is proper relationship of money? What's a healthy, redeemed relationship we could have with money, in which we earn it with integrity, we make good decisions about it, and we give generously in a way that enriches all of us. And in a world like that, with all the wealth that's in the world, all of us could be living comfortably, eating well, having what we truly need every single day. But in the absence of that, he's being asked to completely change his mindset, and I think that's what's so disturbing for him, is he's so locked into the worthiness ladder that he doesn't know what else to do.
It also makes me think of, in the movie Labyrinth, there's these characters which have all these possessions strapped to their backs.
Oh, yeah.
This huge mountain of things.
Yes.
And that they treasure greatly. Just won't let go. And they look like just junk because they've been carrying them so long, they've deteriorated. And they can barely move because they're so weighed down with these things. If they didn't have all these possessions, they could move around so much more easily.
Yeah.
And the main character, who also has a lot of possessions she values greatly, and she had resented her half-brother for having been given one of her teddy bears just briefly to quiet him because he was crying. The lesson she learns at that point is that these things don't matter, they're just things.
Yeah.
Her brother is more important.
Yeah.
So she lets go, and that lets her move on to the next stage and start of the story.
Yeah.
I work for a company that moves seniors, and and it's so interesting to watch. You go into somebody's house, and they're going to go move from there to another place, and this is an opportunity to shed. It is, and so the people that shed, really, it's kind of interesting, go into a new place, and it's a chance to be free. It's a whole new start. It's really interesting, and it's almost kind of it's a religious experience. It's really so cool, but you see the people that won't shed that stuff. And by the time we leave, their new place is just junked with, and you can't even get half the boxes open and stuff like this. And they don't get that new start. They just, and you see it all the time, and you work with people we have skilled people that work with them to try to transition them into this new freedom. And some make it, and some don't.
Yeah. Yeah, there's reasons why we hold on to possessions. It creates a sense of primal safety, and it's in some ways substituting for something else we might need, right? When you buy compulsively, or you know, there's something that you need, and even if you're aware of it, doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to stop or to give it up. You have to be ready.
We don't know what else to fill it with.
Yeah.
Or it's like that person that has that pain or something like that, but they're so used to it, they keep it or something. It's just, I don't know, some unhealthiness.
We get what the kids call today FOMO, fear of missing out.
What'd you say now?
The kids today have this phrase FOMO, stands for fear of missing out,
Oh, come on, wow.
which kind of fits to this too. Like, if I get rid of this, what if I need it later?
Oh, sure.
Or what if I don't buy that, I might need it.
Yeah.
That can really be really insidious.
Yeah.
Or all the projects I've got, little things like, eventually it'd be kind of cool to use this to make that, if I ever get the time. Yeah. That's one of my shortcomings.
Yeah, recently someone said, we can move on to chapter 20, but recently someone said, anytime you're about to buy something, pause and say, except for food, right? Anytime you're about to buy something, pause and say, what do I think this is going to give me? What need is this filling? How do I see myself with this? And they basically, the point is that sometimes you are you believe by buying the product you'll become a certain kind of person that you want to be, but you can be that person without it. But sometimes it's the easiest way to try to get to something we don't even realize we need or want.
Yeah.
So it may be, I will be looked well on and then receive love. Oh, what you really want is love. Well, that can be received without this, but we're not usually that deep with our own needs. You know, it's hard for us to go that deep inside to realize what we're really crying out for. And so, yeah, there's this beautiful, I was thinking about that because there's all these beautiful caftans out right now, and I just want to go buy about 20 of them because they're so pretty.
Oh, yeah.
And then I said, what is it that this represents to me? And I said, well, this is sort of that hippie spiritual look. Because for some reason, there's a part of my identity that wants to be seen as that. Oh, interesting. Well, can I be that without the caftan? Right? It just kind of made me think a little bit about what is it I'm trying to say, or what's trying to get out of me that I can't, it's not conscious. Anyway, I just thought that was a really helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I find it
It's
interesting that
but you're also describing a behavior that you've been working on for how long? Mm-hmm. Okay? I think the average person doesn't deal with that.
No.
I mean, and I'm not saying we're better or worse because we try to deal with it, but I am saying is the average person doesn't.
Sure.
And, yeah.
Well, I found it interesting that you had mentioned, except for food, but really we should treat food along the same way if we're making healthier decisions on what we eat.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
do
yeah,
you really
that's
need
true.
those corn chips? What are we going to get out of those corn chips?
Those Oreos.
I don't like them.
I mean, and yeah, if you acknowledge it, yeah, because I like them, and this is where we make those more intelligent choices of, okay, it's all right to have some corn chips, some Doritos or whatever, as a every now and then item, but you need to bear in mind that what your body really needs are going to be some of those vegetables and some meats, and make the right choices too of what kind of meats are you getting, and similarly for the starches and for your grains,
Should be
etc.
mindful there.
You're right. There's a whole other conversation we could have about food, because our relationship with food is just as complicated as it is with our relationship with possessions, and our relationship with money, and our relationship with our body, and the way we've been taught to see it, and how all of these gifts have been distorted by the culture to be very fraught with an unhealthy energy. And it's really takes a lot of mindfulness and grace for us to start getting out that distortion and get back to the original gift that all of these things were meant to be. Well, let's go on to 20 here while we have the time. Kirsten, do you want to read?
Sure. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon, and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. At about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing around here idle all day?" They said to him, "Well, because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go to the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." Those hired about 5 o'clock came. Each of them received the usual daily wage. And when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you've made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I'm generous? So the last will be the first, and the first will be last." Well, Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. He took the 12 disciples aside by themselves and said to them on the way, "See, we're going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death. And they will hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified. On the third day he'll be raised." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked to favor him. And he said to her, "What do you want?" She said to him, "Declare that these 2 sons of mine will sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." But Jesus answered, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will indeed drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left, this is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." When the 10 heard it, they were angry with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. It will not be so among you, but whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." As they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him. There were 2 blind men sitting by the roadside. When they heard that Jesus was passing by, they shouted, "Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David." The crowd sternly ordered them to be quiet, but they shouted even more loudly, "Have mercy on us, Lord, Son of David." Jesus stood still and called them, saying, "What do you want me to do for you?" They said to him, "Lord, let our eyes be opened." Moved with compassion, Jesus touched their eyes. Immediately they regained their sight and followed him.
Okay. Well, the opening parable usually ticks off a lot of people because it goes against our sense of fairness. But that was the point. Jesus wanted to create a parable that would challenge our sense of fairness and worthiness and deserving, because, as I've been mentioning, he sees how we're stuck in this pattern of deserving and worthiness, which is all wrong. And I read something interesting about this, and they said in a vineyard, when it's time to harvest, it's like you got to do it now, because if you don't harvest everything, it's wasted. And so the landowner may have gone out and got some workers that he thought was enough, and then as the day was going on, realized, oh no, I need more in order to get the work done. And so slowly recruits more people who, by the way, are all waiting around needing jobs, needing food for their families. So there's a lot going on here. The the landowner has a need, which is finally fulfilled by hiring all the people. The landowner paid the original people exactly what he said he'd pay. But basically it's like, in order to help me out, you all get $100. It's just that the people who, they're like, well, I shouldn't get more because I was here longer. I said $100 and everybody gets $100. Now my grapes are done. Plus, bonus, you all get to go home and feed your families today. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on here, and yet we get stuck on the most trite stuff of I should get more because I deserve it. I'm better. I worked longer.
The worst part is those guys who got what they agreed to in the first place are only
Yes.
mad because somebody who worked less got the same
Exactly.
thing. It's not that they were being shorted, it's that somebody else got the same.
Exactly. So this hits at our sense of, I earned it.
Yeah.
I earned it. I get more because I did more
I
than
should have
you.
come out for more, darn it.
Yeah. Instead of, and another thing to think of is, this is very similar to the parable of the prodigal son, where the elder son was with his father the whole time, enjoying a warm bed and a hot meal every day, and yet he misses that was such a blessing when the son comes back and a party is thrown. He's like, well, I should get a party because I'm the good son. You're with me all the time. If you'd asked for a party, I could have thrown you a party. That's not the issue. But it's this desire we have to be better than them. I'm better than them. I worked harder than them. I was a better Christian. I got baptized in the right church. My confirmation was 7 years long and theirs was 6 weeks long, right? We so want to be superior and then be recognized for it, which in the next story about the request for James and John of like, surely, when you come into your glory, this is going to be power, right? It's going to be this. And once again, Jesus is like, none of this is what you think it's going to be. Everybody's going to have what they need in the kingdom of heaven, except for the need to be better than.
I like how the 10 are only mad because they didn't think of it first.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not getting something good. It's just that they didn't negotiate first.
Yeah, yeah.
In both cases, it's, dang, we should have thought of that.
Dang, I needed to get ahead. Just climbing on each other's
I
shoulder.
think appreciating your blessings is entering the kingdom of heaven.
Yes.
You're right. We forget the kingdom of heaven is all around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
think it's something we're going to get. That's right.
And these people got this job and they couldn't appreciate the blessing because they were worried about what other people got.
Yeah.
I know, just,
Or think of it this way.
I see myself in it.
Yes. We look out on a Sunday and we have all these people participating and giving and smiling and loving each other, but we can't appreciate it because it's not the numbers we think it should be. We've just missed the kingdom of God. It was right there in this room, and we missed it because we wanted something else. Or think of a million other examples of that. It was like, we have this gorgeous worship service, but it wasn't all done on the organ. Therefore,
Nice.
it wasn't good, right? Or it wasn't all, the band or whatever. So it's so easy for us to be in the presence, whether it's with family or friends or in moments where something beautiful is happening, and we miss it because of the hell in our own mind. And we're projecting a bunch of junk out, and we miss the party. We miss it because it's just not what we thought it was going to be.
I think one of the greatest examples of that is when I pull out of here and I'll say, oh, well, we had umpteen people here. And then I'll go, but look how many the church is holding now. There's another 50 in the basement. Look at this church right now. It's bigger than it's been in a long time. Like they're worshiping God is different than us. I mean, our church is being used.
Yes.
I just get a rush out of that.
When I pulled up today, I almost couldn't get a parking place.
I know.
Yeah?
There was 2 spots left without blocking other people.
Yeah,
How was that?
yeah. I saw somebody had to drive in the front of the church part.
And I'm just thinking, it was a good feeling for, because again, the book of Numbers stuff. But again, I'm listening to you and I'm not disagreeing with that. It's just that how we've been raised,
Exactly.
what we've been imprinted with from our families and,
Yes.
validations and have you been valued? Were you genuinely valued when you're growing up? I think if people are genuinely valued and they know they were valued, it's not that big a deal later in life to be valued. But for those of us who are not valued, we're working against what we lived and what we taught.
Yes.
We're taught, objectively taught. Trying to get rid of that way of thinking
Yep.
and learning, for example, love for the sake of being loved, all the things they're
Yep.
talking about. To move from the abstract description to a real experience of it, so that, I don't need that. Yeah, that's a realization, a self-realization. And maybe that is closer to what's supposed to be self-actualization, I don't know. Maslow's hierarchy means self-actualization. I don't need it. I got it all.
We have Amy here. She was just learning about those in her child's psych class.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's good
great.
she's learning it. And because again, she'll be, if she hasn't already, she'll be dealing with it in her real life.
Yeah, she will.
And so it's just that, the discussion here is good. And even as I sit here, I think of my own life struggle.
Yeah.
You know, I told you a long time ago, I probably shared it with all of you. When I was growing up, I thought the goal of being a Christian was to be a middle-class citizen who did the right things. You know, you were a good person, and you had a good income, and you were nice, and you did the good things. Yeah.
My reflection on that is every single one of us to some degree is infected with the story of the world of worthiness. And if we're like a sponge of love, we all come seeking connection and needing connection as part of us growing and understanding who we are. We need love as much as we need food and air and water. That's just how it is. And none of us are going to perfectly get it, but there are people who get it way more than other people. And I think we spend the rest of our life as adults trying to understand that that model is never going to be perfect. We're never going to win the model, because even if you were loved as a young person, imperfectly but loved, you're going to encounter people who don't love you. You're going to encounter failure. You're going to encounter all sorts of fear of rejection. I had a great upbringing, but I still am facing my own fears of failure and rejection and other things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that the question is, when we get a picture of what it might be like to be filled on our own with love and to be healed kind of from the inside out, are we interested, and can we give each other the tools and model it so that we can start to do that for ourselves? Because I've realized that, for example, if I come here or anywhere, family gatherings, waiting for people to give me everything I need so that I feel good enough, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It just makes you like, I don't know, I'm watching 30 Rock, which is a hilarious TV show, and there's this one actress on there, Jenna, who just constantly needs validation and praise, and she always bursts into singing so that she can have people applaud for her. It's so embarrassing to watch. And yet she's such a perfect caricature of that one kind of human need manifesting. She needs praise. Other people need other things, right? And she's so thirsty for it and desperate for it. She can never just within herself go, I am a really good singer and I'm a really good actress, even if no one else validates it. Mm-hmm. And then once she truly believes that about herself, then anytime someone comes up to her and says, wow, you're a good singer, she can genuinely say thank you without needing more and more and more of that. So I think we're all on that healing journey, and I think God is inviting us, and Jesus is constantly inviting us on the healing journey to say, whatever you grew up with was an incomplete story. And the real story of God, the real story is that you're so like bathed in love that it can burst out of you. And then it almost doesn't matter what happens out here. But of course, Jesus could embody that. It was really hard for everybody else following him to model that.
Yeah.
I struggled with it.